So on this batch, we're going to be doing some canned mushroom slices or pieces. I've never even opened a can of these. These are for my sister. She got these. The plan is to put them in the little pre-freeze pans. And since this has 68 ounces of drained weight, I figure I'd do 6 ounces approximately on each side. That would give me 5 full pans and a part of a pan. So we'll get this open, drain them, and start scooping them into pans, see what it looks like. Okay, well, looks like mushroom. So I got that drained out. This is a product of Holland. So here's the ingredients and nutrition label. So I'm going to switch this to ounces, and I'll get 6 ounces in a side. Going about 6 ounces on each side. Now get all these pans filled with about 12 ounces on each, and then, well, 6 ounces on each side, 12 ounce per pan. Get these into the freezer for pre-freezing. And I don't know if after these freeze, if they're going to stick together as little blocks or if they'll just fall apart. Either way, we'll know that we have 6 ounces on a side for depanning. Okay, so those are going into the freezer for pre-freezing. Now we'll depan these mushrooms so they can wait for their turn in the freeze dryer. Oh, they're all half blocks, okay. And this one's a little bit short. This one was only a 4 ounce block. Anyway, so just kind of push the sides out because these pans are a little bit flexible and they pop right out. And I'll just put them in a bag, waiting their turn in the freeze dryer. Or they'll wait their turn in the freezer, waiting for their turn in the freeze dryer. Each half pan was a half pound. And it also does really well for about 400 to 500 grams for a whole tray. When I did 500 grams for each tray, then sometimes I only put 8 full trays into the freeze dryer instead of 10 like when I do the pound or 400 grams. And we're not worried about these coming apart after they freeze dry. In fact, we're hoping they'll just kind of fall apart. But this way, when we put them on trays, we can space them out, and we know that we have half-pound increments, so if we want to bag them in half-pound amounts, they're already pre-measured. So that'll go back into the freezer and wait their turn in the freeze dryer. And I try to put these videos of the panning and depanning with the video of the freeze drying, even though sometimes they're weeks or months apart. But I try to keep them together so at least there's some continuity there. Because people ask, well, why not just put them right on the freeze dryer trays? Well, the freeze dryer trays are in the freeze dryer with another batch right now, and it's not their turn yet, so we're ahead on this. Okay, next when we see these, they'll be going onto the freeze dryer trays. Okay, it's time to start batch 578. So the freeze dryer is all defrosted after the last batch, which was one of my sister's again. It was pineapple and some lima bean stuff. And here's the water from that, just about a gallon, maybe a few ounces more. So that is out of there. And maybe she's right, maybe it is time for her to buy her own freeze dryer. She's been really looking at it for a while now, and she does a lot of batches. So the next batch is 578, and it's another batch for her. And I'm not exactly sure what it is. She has some things in the freezer already. I think we're going to do some canned mushrooms, and then she has some canned gravy that's she pre-froze also. So that's probably going to be next. So first, let's get the machine ready for the next batch. Everything seems real clean in the freeze dryer, but I'm gonna just grab a paper towel, and I could probably use a disinfectant wipe in here, but then I'd want to air out for a while too. So I'm just kind of wiping it in there to see if I see any residue of any kind on there in the areas that I can't really reach into. Everything looks nice and clean though, so I'm not seeing anything. And this time it's had overnight to dry because I just wasn't ready to put something in last night as far as time wise, because it was quite late and I just didn't want to have to wait for it to defrost. In fact, I don't think it would have defrosted by midnight, so I waited till today to get it going. Now we get the thermometer underneath, and extra thermometers are not a requirement on ours. Ours is a 2017 machine. The temperature probe is on the bottom of this tray or this shelf way in the back, and you can see it if you look up under there. There's a little extra bulge under that one as opposed to the others on ours. I don't know if the others have any additional thermometers, but again, where it's at, that's perfect for controlling the tray and turning the heater on and off to keep a constant heat level at that tray. But it tells me nothing about what the barrel temperature is. So this one's laying on the barrel itself, and it'll tell me what the temperature of the actual barrel is. Okay, and then I have the other ones that I put in the food that tell me what the temperature of the food is. And again, totally not required, but I really like to know. So now we'll get the front put into place. I'll close the drain valve. Okay, drain valve's closed. Make sure I've got a ring all the way around there. I do on the seal, so I know that it's holding air already. And now we'll get it started. And I'm starting it using Customize. And I've got this shelf temperature set for 120 currently. And the cycle times are set for 6-hour freeze. Well, I guess I could show that. The cycle times, we have the freeze time for 6 hours and a final dry for 11 hours right now. And on the newer machines, it may not even have this option to put this. I really like it because I can control it well. Okay, so we've got a countdown timer, we've got the temperature inside the barrel, and it's running and ready to go. So as usual, I'll let that cool down till it's at least 20 degrees and dropping before I get the food on the trays. I like to have this at the same temperature as the food is when I put it in here. My freezers are set to about 0 degrees, and by the time I get them on the food onto the trays and over here, usually they've warmed up to maybe 10 degrees. So I like to have them kind of matched. I don't want to warm up the food when I put it in here with a warm freeze dryer. Okay, so as soon as that's cool enough, we'll get stuff on trays and get them in here. So don't go away. So the freeze dryer's had a ridiculously long time to cool already, so now we'll finally get the food in. I just got sidetracked a lot of times. I'm gonna need some parchment papers. So we'll get the parchment paper out. Now I've got my parchment papers cut and I'm ready to put them on the trays. Yeah, I'll go get the food. All right, tray 1. I've got these mushrooms. I'm going to fill up this tray with these little blocks, and the one that was a light block. So this is the one that was only about 4 ounces instead of 8-ounce ones. I'm going to put a full one on that one too. So there we go. And $15.94 for that tray. Okay, tray 2. And more 6-ounce blocks. $15.77. And then tray 3. And this one was only a 4-ounce block, and we'll add those couple of pieces on there. And this batch is another batch of my sister's things. So she puts them in my freezer, I put them on the pans. And this was Chef Mate brand canned country sausage gravy, and it was 2 cups a pan. And then she kind of pushes them into 2 blocks because she doesn't have any dividers. So she uses like a spatula. Once they're partway frozen, she just kind of puts the spatula in the pan and squish them back and forth, and does beautifully uneven pans. And this is $18.29 for tray 3. And finally, tray 4. So $19.75. And then the remaining blocks will go back in the freezer and wait their turn with other stuff that's waiting. Okay, so popped that. I got to get the lights back on, so don't go away. Yeehaw! So I've got thermometers in all the trays now. So I drilled them right into the blocks of sausage gravy, and now we can get them in the freeze dryer. So we have the sausage gravy and the canned mushrooms ready to go in the freeze dryer. We'll get these in there real quick, and it's ridiculously cold because it's been pre-freezing for so long. But I got sidetracked with some other things that had to be done after I got it started. So this food, unfortunately, was set out for long enough that it's almost 20 degrees on these trays. But it's negative 40 inside here. In fact, that says it's negative 57. Got a good ring around there. So those are all in there. It's been pre-freezing for a long time because I got called away on some other things, so I couldn't get it in there after I started the machine. So it's actually been pre-freezing for almost 4.5 hours already. And it said it was negative 57 up on the tray. And once it gets below 40, I don't know if I trust it. Below negative 40. The thermometer underneath touching the barrel was lower than negative 40. Everything will be cold in a short time and ready to start the cycle. So we'll be back as soon as that's done, probably in 2 days. So don't go away. We'll be right back in a minute. The freeze dryer finished about 5.5 hours ago, but I wasn't down here, of course, to do anything with it. So now I'm going to rewarm it before I take them out to weigh them, because the trays are more than 40 below zero. So if I took them out right now, I'd have condensation on it in seconds. I'll restart this and we'll see what it says the temperature is. I'm going to put more dry time, and I never opened it, so it's still closed. And what's it say? Negative 55. It's about 45 below zero on that tray. So I'll let that warm up until it's warm enough that we won't have condensation. So I'll be back in hopefully just a few minutes and we'll get them out. I've let it rewarm for just over 45 minutes now. The coldest tray now is about 80 degrees. So 80 and 90 degrees in the heavier sausage gravy stuff. And then it's over 120 in the lightweight mushroom areas. So now I'm going to bypass the rest of that, take them out, get the weights, and then put them back in to see if they're dry. So again, doing the dry check by simply weighing them, giving them more final dry time, weighing them again, see if they lose weight. If they continue to lose weight, they're not dry. If it stopped losing weight, they're dry. So now we'll bypass the rest of that and check them. So I'll bypass the rest of that. And then open the drain valve. Come on. It's nice when it's got that good of a seal. So tray 1, the canned mushroom, that tray is hot. Yikes. Yeah, that tray is positively hot. 818, not a lot of weight of mushrooms left. There's 45, 55, 65. So it's only 63 grams left on the tray. Okay, tray 2, 811. Okay, and then these will go back in for more time. And I'm going to put tray 2 up on the top and tray 1 down here. Okay, tray 3, 989, and those feel nice and warm. Tray 4, and this is the bottom one, it's the coolest tray, 1040. It was also the heaviest before it went in, so the fact that it's the heavier one now is not a big problem. But one thing I noticed was that tray 1 and 2 are scorching hot. So tray 4, tray 4 will go up a spot. And then tray 1 was very, very hot. I'm going to go ahead and move it down to the lowest position and then put tray 3 here. So the ones with the heavier blocks of the sausage area, I'm putting those on these middle two and get the mushrooms on the outside too, because I have no doubt that they're already dry. Okay, let's get this restarted. Get the disc back in place and get it restarted. And I don't really have to worry about the seal right now because I'm going to start it immediately while I'm here. So I don't have to worry about it sitting here and freezing, because that's not going to happen. So I'll close the drain valve. Okay, drain valve is closed now. More dry time. And with this, the more dry time is final dry time, so it heats up the trays and try to keep them hot the whole time. Okay, close the drain valve. I did. Continue. And it's plenty cool because the cooling fan. Oh, and I'll add 15 minutes so I get the full 2 hours of time. So we'll be back in about 2 hours, so don't go away, we'll be right back. I'm back. It's in the last 15 minutes now, so the heaters have already turned off a couple of minutes ago, a minute and a half ago. So they'll start cooling, but right now they're still really toasty, so we're going to get them out and weigh them to see if they lost any weight during that time. I don't expect the mushrooms to have lost any weight, and the sausage gravy, who knows. I'd already given them an extra 4 hours last night so that they would be potentially still running when I got up this morning, except of course I didn't get up this morning in time, so I had to reheat it as you saw earlier. Now let's get them out. I'll bypass that last bit. Okay, open the drain valve. And I've got tray 1 is all the way at the bottom this time. And let's see what that did. So 2 hours later and no change. And that's kind of what I expected with the mushrooms. Tray 2, 811. Also no change. So these are definitely ready to come out and bag. Tray 3, one of the gravy ones. Oh, good. Also no change. And tray 4. Well, that one did go down by 2. One tray with the sausage gravy lost 2 grams. That's not a lot in 2 hours. However, when it started the batch, so the entire time of the batch except the last 2 hours, it was on the bottom shelf. The bottom shelf tends to be the colder shelf in here, and it also tends to be the slowest one to dry. And it's marginal, but with this heaviest material as opposed to the mushrooms, it does take longer to dry. And because we had 2 grams and we're not 100% sure, we're going to put that tray of gravy back in. We might as well put the other gravy one in there at the same time, and then we can bag all the gravy at the same time. So we'll go over and pull the mushrooms off of that tray and take care of them first. So when next you see those mushrooms, they'll be over there on the little folding mat or in a Ziploc or something waiting to be bagged. So this is the tray that had the mushrooms on there. I left that over at the bagging. We'll see that in just a minute. Until then, I'm going to go ahead and put these 2 back in because that one lost 2 grams and we want to be sure. One thing I try to avoid a lot is to bag anything that might have moisture in it. So I'll close the drain valve, and actually we'll come back and restart this in a few minutes. I'll leave it sitting here in the cooling mode until we finish bagging the mushrooms so that it's not so loud while we're bagging the mushrooms. So we'll come over and see this in a minute. And I think we'll record the time and the power usage at this point also for the mushrooms, because we don't know how long ago those dried, but they were dry at least 2 hours ago. So it's showing 51 hours, but it was only at 42 hours before I added time for checking the drying. So I'm going to use 42 hours for the mushrooms, and that's still probably overkill. Yeah, so whatever time we have here, we've got to subtract 5 hours of it for any of the times because it was sitting waiting for 5 hours before I restarted it today. And the power usage is showing 30.77 kilowatt hours, and again that would have been less because it's using 330 watts, so we'll call it 1/3 of a thousand. So every 3 hours just sitting here cooling, it's going to use about a kilowatt. So it would have been almost 2 kilowatts less than that just if you subtract the overnight portion. Now to the bagging. While the sausage gravy sits over there in the machine, we'll get these weighed up with the thermometers out and get them bagged. 811 for tray 1. We're trying to kind of keep these blocks together because each one of these was 6 ounces. So it's kind of nice to have them already portioned out. We don't have to do it now. And it's not important. We could always just divide up the total. So 56 grams of mushrooms. This was 30 ounces. Now it's less than 2. That's nice and even stuff. The 2 trays, the net weight for the 2 trays of mushrooms are 56 grams each.
Wow.
Yeah, that's nice and even. And that's what they should do. We'll see if we can keep these kind of in blocks by using the little scoop. And we've got the bags labeled with the batch number and the batch number in felt pen in case this gets lost. And what it is, the date that it went into the freeze dryer. Dang, that would have been really nice if I had corrected that and put the correct date on it, because that's not right. So we have to correct that. And then the amount that it was before it was drying. Now these are the little pint bags. Oh, and then this is the one that was in the other tray. This is the one that was just 4 ounces. These would be great for so many things. If you want to add some nice flavor, you could just powder these up, and these would powder quite readily. Okay, I'm going to try to get between the 2 bunches and just scoop them up. And then I can jiggle them down into the bag. And as always, the table gets wiped, so when we inevitably drop stuff on there, it's all fine to use. Okay, the pint bag is a perfect size for 6 ounces of the canned mushrooms that have been dried. You might, yeah, if you give it a shake, you probably could get 8 ounces if you wanted to in the little pint bag. But this is more than a cup of dry mushrooms. It's amazing when you lift them up. It just adds like no weight to this. I wonder how much this scoop weighs. This scoop weighs more than twice what all the mushrooms on an entire tray weighs. That's funny. And mushrooms, if you wanted to rehydrate these for canned mushrooms, you would just get it back till each bag worth weighs about 6 ounces. But they're also only going to absorb what they need. So if it's not real important, you could just put them in water and then drain it. Of course, you're going to lose some of the flavor, so you want to get it pretty close. Anyway, 5 or 6 ounces, because it weighs almost nothing by themselves. It'd be 10, 11, yeah, it'd be about 11 grams. So the mushrooms in each bag is only about 11 grams. And then the other tray. I didn't even try this. Let's try this kind of in the center. Oh yeah. Some things don't get crisp when you freeze dry them. Shrimp don't get crisp. The structure of them, it comes out more like pliable styrofoam. Lots of raw meats don't get crisp. They get less structure. So they don't snap, they bend. Watermelon, I don't know if you could snap watermelon. I think it would just turn to powder. But these, of course, I'm breaking up your pieces. Anyway, these snap just great. I wasn't sure how these would do. I never think of mushrooms of having all that much structure that would be able to dry that way. And these aren't going to make it to a bag, or to a Mylar bag. They're going to be tested until they're all gone. For the one test that I could show easy, since these aren't mine, but we could just simply take one of these pieces and put it in a bit of water and see how long it takes to rehydrate. That would be an interesting thing, I think. I've never done canned mushrooms before. We've done fresh mushrooms and just sliced them, but I've never done canned. This was easy and not expensive this way, really. We've got the 10 pint bags of mushrooms. Going to add the 300 cc oxygen absorbers to each one of them and then zipper them shut. And allegedly, each one of these bags comes with 10 of these. Sometimes there's 11. And occasionally 9. On the average, there's been more than 10. But it still causes confusion when you're putting them in there and it doesn't match what you think it's going to. That's why I kind of move them over as I put them in there to make sure that I get each one once and I don't forget one. Okay, now I'm not going to worry too much about squishing out the air, but if there's a big space at the top, I'm going to push out any extra and then zipper it shut. As soon as we get them all zippered, we'll get the heat sealer going and heat seal them. Oh, and I have to mention some stuff about the heat sealer. Somebody broke it. Hi, I'm somebody. And we're using the little 1 pint 7 mil Mylar bags with the gusseted bottoms, which I really like. It's so handy when if you're using these for lunch or out camping, because they stand up. You don't have to worry about them falling over. These are great. Next, heat sealing. Okay, zippering these shut is not a substitute for heat sealing. In fact, it doesn't even do a good enough job to replace heat sealing. One of the viewers had a question about their heat sealer a couple of days ago. And the thing that they were having with it, the issue they were having with it is the unit would click. So, and there's actually 2 clicks involved, and I don't know if you would hear the first one when it's turning on. You would hear it when it's turning off. So that's the mechanical switch that turns it on. There's also a a relay up here that turns it electrically on, turns this on, and would turn it off. Well, the thing that was happening with theirs, they could hear the click, the light would come on, so the power light would come on, but this did not get hot. Well, I looked at ours and I looked at the schematics, and I don't know enough about it to know for sure, but it looks like even if you took out the transformer for the heat strip, or the heat strip itself, that this circuit would still come on, the light would still come on, all the clicks would still happen. Well, and a completely unrelated thing, the next day I was moving some other stuff up here on the bagging cart, and I had pushed mine off the cart. Apparently, when you have the sudden stop on the concrete from 3 foot up, it doesn't survive. So something on mine's broken, and I think it might be the relay. Might be something else too. But anyway, so mine comes on, it clicks, the light comes on, but the power strip also comes on, but it doesn't go off until you raise this. So the timing portion of it has failed. So that's not good. So we're going to fake it by turning off the power switch for each bag so that we can still let it cool for a couple of seconds. So I've got it unplugged right now. But our normal method would be to have the bag with the seal area way at the top of the bag, and we would normally push it down, hold it, the light would go off, and then we'd count 1 or 2 more seconds while it cools just a teeny bit before we release it so that the plastic in the seal area isn't still molten. Well, that won't work right now because it doesn't go off. So I'm going to turn the power off to it for each bag. Anyway, so now we'll seal these. 1, 2, 3, click. That's my plan. 1, 2, 3, click. And then I'll release it, and then you can turn it back on. It'll be ready for the next one. God, it's almost funny. Well, the timing is so freaking funny. Because I was working on something, boop. Oops. And the lights all go off. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, click, off. Okay. Then I'll let it cool for just a second or 2. All right, perfect seal. All it needs is 2 people. That's just funny. Well, I could do a foot switch. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and off. That looks great. Okay, and 1, 2, 3, and off. 3, and off. Now back to these. The last thing we do before we store any of our bags nowadays is write the gross weight on the bag of what it weighs now. So this bag with the oxygen absorber, the label, everything is 32 grams. So I'll write the 32 grams on there. Now if moisture starts to go through that bag, it'll start to get heavier, and we'll be able to tell by weighing it. And 32. Most of them, they should be within a gram or 2. And if it's going up and down between 2 numbers, we take the higher number of the 2. All right, as soon as these are all labeled, well, 2 things. 1, they can go back to their home. And 2, we'll go over to the freeze dryer and get that sausage gravy finished. With the mushrooms bag, now we'll come back and finish this sausage gravy. It probably is dry already, but I don't want to bag it and chance that it still has some moisture in it. So we'll give it at least 2 more hours and then check it again. Going to give it more dry time. I did close the drain valve already, so that's done. And continue. And it says it still needs 11 more minutes to cool. It's fine. The fan's blowing on it. It's always cool enough. All right, so we'll be back in about 2 hours. It's been a bunch of time. I think about 3.5 more hours since we last checked it. And now the thermometers are both over 120. And earlier, one of the gravy ones was only like 110, which still is plenty warm to freeze-dry food. You can freeze-dry them at a much lower temperature, maybe 80 or 90 even, maybe less. But it will take a lot longer. You can even go higher and go quicker, but it could change the appearance of the food and things like that too. So now, let's get them out and check these. What we're looking for is no weight loss since last time, which lets us know that it was dry 3.5 hours ago. If we have more weight loss, any amount, then we have to decide, are we confident that all of it happened during that amount of time, or are we going to give it more time until there's 0 during a period of time, which is what we usually do. Occasionally though, on the really long tests, we'll go, okay, it's been 4 or 5 hours and it's only 1 gram or something, and the other trays lost nothing. So that one is the anomaly, and we'll go ahead and take it out. Let's find out what we've got on this one. Hey, we'll skip that last 13 minutes and open the drain valve. And we'll get these 2 out and check them. So tray 3, very toasty warm. And it is 981. So it's a good thing we didn't take them out last time. Let's double check this, make sure it's zeroed out. So I'm putting something on it to set it to a different tare weight. Now I'm putting it back to 0. And then resetting it on there to double check. Yeah, so that's 7 more grams down. Yeah, what? Oh, the mushrooms that were on the tray. Duh. Wish I'd have weighed those. Well, we know, huh?
You weighed the mushrooms.
Yes, I did. I didn't weigh that single bag of mushrooms all by itself. This one hadn't changed previously. I forgot about the mushrooms. So this one's fine. That one hadn't changed previously anyway. This is the one that had changed. So tray 4, 1037. Now we're down only 1 gram in 3.5 hours. So now, and it was only 2 the previous. So now we're confident that we're good. Okay, thank you, mushrooms. Tray 3 really threw me because I thought, well, it lost 7 grams. I forgot about the 4 ounces of mushrooms, pre-dried weight of mushrooms that was on there before. And 6 ounces weight of pre-dried mushrooms weighed about 11 grams after it's freeze-dried. So the fact that this one had lost 7 grams from the previous measurement makes perfect sense after that. Anyway, it's dry. We're going to go ahead and turn it off with no defrost. It's amazing how much quieter it gets. I've mentioned a few times, it's not like the sound of a dishwasher unless you're talking about a commercial dishwasher and your head is inside it. This is much louder than a dishwasher. It's not. The sound, at least in our house, doesn't carry. So if we're not in this room, it's not bad. Even if we step into the next room over, we're in a basement area, the next room over, there's no door between it, it's 8 feet away, it's still much, much quieter. It's pleasant, it's fine. If you go through any of the areas that have a door and you close the door, it's fine. It doesn't seem to transmit much. But it's not like a dishwasher unless it's time to buy a new dishwasher because yours is going to blow up or something. Anyway, it's quieter than I expected for the type of machinery it is, but it's not like a dishwasher. And even the vacuum pump isn't that loud. The whole thing, all the components together is plenty loud. But let's get this taken care of, taking the thermometer out from underneath, putting the little deflection plate in there for defrosting, and get the fan in place. And then we'll get the time and the power. It's showing basically 55¼ hours, but it didn't really change during the last 3 hours, 3.5 hours. We had 5 hours before that it wasn't even running. It was just in a holding, cooling and waiting. So I need to take off about at least 8¼ hours off that. Okay, so then we'll go over to the power usage. So the total on that batch ended up as 33.38 kilowatt hours. And again, it would have been less if I'd have taken things out on time. And then we'll reset it, get it ready for the next batch. Final weights, tray 3. The important thing is I already have a number, and so really what I need to do is weigh the thermometer this time and subtract it from the previous weight, because those mushrooms are gone. So I can use this weight that we had before minus the 8 grams for the thermometer. We have 981. And then everything's good. And tray 4, 1029. For these and rehydrating these, you can either just slowly add water until it's the consistency you want, or you can carefully weigh the blocks before and after, which is what I tend to do. My sister tends to use a measuring cup and then roughly divide them in half for the half trays, and then adds the water she wants to add when she uses it. Got the bags and the sausage. Now I'm going to add some instant clear gel to each set of these, because these are a canned sausage gravy, and it's not supposed to be frozen. It has been frozen, and even though it's been freeze-dried, it doesn't matter. It's already gone through a freeze cycle, and then the thawing, or not the thawing, but the freeze-drying. We've found in the past with those kinds of sauces that are not supposed to be frozen, the thickener they use doesn't hold up for freezing, and so it's going to be a thinner, runnier sauce. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of the instant clear gel to each half block as we go. So if we put 2 of them in one bag, we'll add 2 teaspoons of the instant clear gel. And so far we've found that seems to work extremely well. And if it's a sauce that can be frozen or is in a freezer section, then they've used a different thickener already, and then you don't have to worry about this. The plan is to try to crush them up a little bit. Oh, that seems to work very easily. Oh, except I forgot to add this. So I can add this before I start crushing it up, because then it will mix into the gravy as I go. And since that had 2 of the little blocks, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons. And if you like yours thicker, you could add 3 teaspoons. Or
Bounce off the floor.
yeah, or don't worry about it at all, and it's still going to work. It's just going to be runnier. And then you could always add something to it after you've rehydrated it, like cornstarch or a flour or something, and then cook it. Most of the things that I crush this way, unless it's a powdery thing, I'm trying to not crush the pieces. On these, however, it's just little sausage pieces, so you don't really have to worry about it. You can crush it pretty firmly, and it still does just fine. That should do great. And by throwing in the instant clear gel early in the mixing, or in the crushing, it's all mixed in there, and it's good to go. It's a nice fit. You can get 2 cups in each one of these. There's plenty of room to close it. And you could even rehydrate it right in this bag just by pouring the hot water right in there, or cold water and then heating it up afterwards, but obviously you want hot gravy. So these two went together. And this time I'll remember to put the instant clear gel in before I start crushing it up. Instant clear gel has been around for a very, very long time. I just discovered it a year or two ago. This stuff is great for this. Makes wonderful pies, great sauces, adds some nice thickness to the stews. And you can use a rolling pin for this. That's what we use a lot for sauces. And then I'm just tossing it back and forth a few times to make sure that the instant clear gel is thoroughly mixed throughout the whole batch. And same thing with the third one of these. Just realized what it's missing. Biscuits. So for the sausage gravy, ended up with 3 pint bags with 1 cup in each, and 3 quart bags, which are the older, smaller quart bags, which don't hold a quart. They only hold 24 ounces maximum. And each of these have 2 cups in them. Now we'll add oxygen absorbers. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm making sure that they're kind of tucked down on the ones that are fuller or more full to make sure that it doesn't end up in the seal area. So that one still needs one. I'm going to take these right away and squish out any extra air and zipper them shut. Okay, and then I need 1 more oxygen absorber for that one. Now get this one squished. We'll get these sealed and ready for storage. So time to seal, let's go. That seal looks a little bit wrinkly, and that's one of the reasons I try to keep it very high, so I've got room for more tries below that if I'm not happy with that seal. So I'm going to make sure it's smoothed very well across that. Get all the wrinkliness out. I'm going to hold this over the top, which stretches that, and then do it again. 1, 2, 3, off. That's just so funny. Okay, so now that seal is nice and smooth. That top edge is kind of wrinkly, and it's probably completely sealed, but the only way to test it that I know of is to give it a good long time and see if it fails. I've got room for more. You can see there's 1 more. I've got room for 2 more tries still. So there's enough room for 4 seals across the top of that. They're 5mm seals, and there's at least 20mm up here. And you can even go below the zipper area. If you have to, you just lose that zipper function. But it's still, you got plenty of time to redo it. Plenty of space. So just like the mushroom ones, we'll go ahead and add a gross weight to each bag, and if it's showing more than 1 weight bouncing, we'll take the higher one, so 82 grams. Now we have the batch number, what it is, the date that it went in after we change it from a 6 to a 9, because I forgot that. And as soon as these have the weights on each one of them, they're ready to go back home to be stored and or used. And now on to the next batch, which could be something very different once again. Still working on some of my sister's items, and sometimes she comes across strange things that she wants to try freeze drying for long-term storage. I think you'll find that this next one is one of those again. So see you in a little while on the next batch. Let's try this little guy right there and see. Whoa!
Yeah.
Well, that looks very interesting.
Like a little baby sponge.
Yeah. Okay, I can see what looks like 1 dry spot right there still. So the outside is rehydrated like in mere seconds. This goes super close. Oh, that's pliable. I didn't feel them right out of the can. I have no idea what they felt like because I just
Squishy
spooned them in.
and pliable.
Well,
Very
well, look at that.
very limp.
Okay. If it's like some of the other, well, this isn't a vegetable. If it's like some of the vegetables, they'll soak up the water very quickly, like cubes of potatoes. They'll soak up the water very quickly, but if you eat them very quickly, it's like eating a little bitty sponge. And then you give them another 15 minutes to a half hour or something, and they'll start to firm up. So it's like each individual, so it's almost like a sponge that where the water's in between all the little pieces, but not in the cellular structure yet. And you give it a little more time and it gets inside there and plumps up each cell and becomes more firm. And that's just my thought process. I have no idea the real science of that. I'm not Ann Reardon, the food scientist. Oh, that's good.
It's not as
Wow.
instantaneous as ham.
No, but the structure was great. I mean, how long did I yak? 2 minutes? That is really good.
Not bad.
And it's a good mushroom. It's like a slightly sauteed mushroom. So what it was missing is butter. That's amazing.
Butter.
Oh, I can't reach in there now with that hand.
Just, yeah, shakes them out on the table.
Yeah, because I don't want to get any moisture into the bag. So I want to try one that has a more stemmy piece. All right, so we've got a few more little pieces. Got one that's just the stem part, so we can kind of compare it. Oh, that's a stem part cut crosswise, or across it. Just the top portion and then a top end stem. Because that, I'm amazed. Let's check that out. Well, very, very, very quickly. That's great. Want that one in there? Oh, that's a beautiful looking piece. Look at that go.
Sit down.
Wow. Most things do not rehydrate that fast. Sliced ham does. A few other things do, but most things, they're still very spongy if you try to eat them too quick or too soon after putting them in the water. You need to give them a few minutes. And that's what I'm wondering about these stem pieces. But they were canned, which means they would have been cooked in the can, at least. And so that probably helps. Okay, well, I'm not going to wait. Going to get that out and check that. So it definitely feels spongy still, which I'm not surprised. Most of these things yep, it's still spongy. And especially the stem structure, is it would be like bundles of little straws. Okay, so I think it needs more time to firm up, but other than that, okay, so this is the stem piece that's a cross section, so it would be like shorter little straws. It's still spongy. And a lot of times when people say, oh, they tried it and it was spongy, carrots, I know people have said, a lot of them, yeah, a lot of them, they just haven't given them enough time. Carrots, I think we've done them 2 and 3 hours in the refrigerator, and they're really quite good. Overnight, they're even better. They firm up more.
Green beans.
Yeah, a lot of these things take many hours to get all the water out. We shouldn't expect them to be back to what they were before in seconds. And some things will never be like fresh. For instance, chopped onions or onions in general. If you freeze an onion and then thaw it, you get something that's not very good. So the freeze-dried works better than frozen and then thawed. But essentially, I find that if you can freeze it and then thaw it and be happy with the texture, freezing it, freeze-drying it, and then rehydrating it, you're going to get about the same texture, and if you're happy with the other, you're going to be happy with that. If you're not happy with frozen and then thawed, you're not going to be happy with a lot of the freeze-dried. Okay. Yeah, so these are still pretty spongy. Yep, still pretty spongy for that. Again, saute it in butter and I think you're going to be happy with it. So it looked like the cap portion was better so far than the stemmy piece. And disregard the cutting of this. This is like a table knife. That's much better. The cap portion of this is much better than the stem portion of this in that amount of time. Yeah, that's quite a difference. Want to try that and compare? And here's the cap portion and a little stem portion.
Still needs some more time, but it's not bad.
It tastes like sauteed mushroom, or feels kind of like sauteed mushroom. That to me was still spongier and tougher, but it is a stem piece. Butter, maybe a little bacon. Well, enough of that for now. Looks interesting. I present to you the last block. Dun dun dun. Dun, 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 dun. Well, that one's done.